Hi, Cubs, and welcome back to our Read Aloud, the Phantom Tollbooth. Now, yesterday I asked you guys as our question. Miss Kimber's trying to get to the right spot. To reflect on something that Talk said. Talk said, for time is our most valuable possession, more precious than diamonds. And I asked you if you felt like that was right. Now, Henry and Tanisha said, like, no, I don't think that that's true because people waste time all the time. And a lot of you said that, yes, you agree because you agreed. And I think that Shreya, so like Nishvita, Houston, Sarvaj, Caden, Diley, Srivatsa, Louisa, Mason, Shreya, all agreed that with Talk for similar reasons, for the most part. But I would say that Shreya probably kind of hit that nail on the head when she said you can't get back time. So you only have a certain amount of time, right? And then there's no more time. Time doesn't go on forever for anybody. So I think that that's the point that Norton Juster is making. Like, it's so important that you use your time well. All right, now yesterday we ended with Milo. Let's rewind. Milo was entering Dictionopolis, and he had to have a reason. He couldn't find one, so the guard helped him, and he gave him a small medallion that said, "Why not?" So that's his reason for getting into Dictionopolis. And so now we're in Dictionopolis, and we're going to find out kind of what happens. I want you, as we describe the things that happen around Dictionopolis, to think about what you would think of going to a place like this. All right? Here we go. And with that, he placed it around Milo's neck, pushed back the heavy iron gate, bowed low, and motioned them into the city. I wonder what the market will be like, thought Milo as they drove through the gate. But before there was time for an answer, they had driven into an immense square, crowded with long lines of stalls, heaped with merchandise, and decorated in gay-colored bunting. So this gay-colored bunting means happy, like happy-colored bunting. And bunting is something that you might have seen. It kind of looks like fabric, like that's like tied like at the top of things. It kind of drapes like this. So it's at the top of it's saying stalls. So where they're selling things, there are like happy, like bright colored bunting there, to make people like more interested in it, right? Overhead, a large banner proclaimed. What does proclaim mean? We're going to read this, and then I want you to think what proclaim means, okay? Overhead, a large banner proclaimed, "Welcome to the word market." So proclaimed. This is what it said. That's what it says, right? So it must be says. Large banner said, "Welcome to the word market," right? Or read, probably. Excuse me. And from across the square, 5 very tall, thin gentlemen, there they are, regally dressed in silks and satin, plumed hats, and buckled shoes, rushed up to the car, stopped short, mopped 5 brows, caught 5 breaths, unrolled 5 parchments, and began talking in turn. "Greetings, salutations, welcome, good afternoon, hello." Milo nodded his head, and as they went on reading from their scrolls. By order of Azaz, the Unabridged. I want you to look at this name. Wait, pause. Let's look at this name. What do you notice about this name, Azaz? Yeah, I notice it's A-Z-A-Z. So, let's go back and read. Let me go back and restart. By order of Azaz, the Unabridged, King of Dictionopolis, Monarch of Letters, Emperor of Phrases, Sentences, and miscellaneous figures of speech, we offer you the hospitality of our kingdom, country, nation, state, commonwealth, realm, empire, palatinate, principality, Do all those words mean the same thing? Gasped Milo. Of course. Certainly. Precisely. Exactly. Yes, they replied in order. So if you notice, these guys, not only do they look a lot alike, but we can notice that they also say a lot of the same things, just in a different way. So there's one of them, right? Well then, said Milo, not understanding why each one said the same thing in a slightly different way. Wouldn't it be simpler just to use one? It would certainly make more sense. So you decide, do you think it makes more sense for just one of them to say one word? Or do you think, like Milo was saying, or do you think that it's good enough, they should just keep saying the same, they should say different words to mean the same thing? So see if you agree with Milo or not. Nonsense. Ridiculous. Fantastic. Absurd. Bosh. They chorused again and continued. We're not interested in making sense. It's not our job, scolded the first. Besides, explained the second, one word is as good as another, so why not use them all? Then you don't have to choose which one is right, advised the third. Besides, sighed the fourth, if one is right, then 10 are 10 times as right. Do you agree with that? Obviously, you don't know who we are, sneered the fifth. And they presented themselves one by one as the Duke of Definition, the Minister of Meaning, the Earl of Essence, the Count of Connotation, the Undersecretary of Understanding. Milo acknowledged the introduction, and, as Talk growled softly, the minister explained, We are the king's advisors, or, in more formal terms, his cabinet. So there's one that's about definition, one that's about meaning, one that's about essence, that means one that's about connotation, and one that's about understanding. And just so you know, a lot of these things these are, again, words that are very, very similar in their meaning. So I guess you've got to decide, do they all do the same thing? Cabinet, recited the Duke. A small private room, 1. A small private room or closet. Case with drawers, etc., for keeping valuables or displaying curiosities. 2. Council room for chief ministers of state. 3. A body of official advisors to the chief executive of a nation. So what is he doing? Yeah, he's telling you what a cabinet, the different definitions of cabinet. You see, continued the minister, bowing thankfully to the Duke, Dictionopolis is a place where all the words in the world come from. They're grown right here in our orchards. So he's saying they grow. Interesting. I didn't know that words grew on trees, said Milo timidly. Where did you think they grew? Shouted the Earl irritably. A small crowd began to gather to see the little boy who didn't know that letters grew on trees. Well, I didn't know they grew at all, admitted Milo, even more timidly. Oh, I didn't know they grew at all, admitted Milo, even more timidly. Several people shook their heads sadly. Well, money doesn't grow on trees, does it? Demanded the Count. I've heard not, said Milo. Then something must. Why not words? Exclaimed the Undersecretary triumphantly. The crowd cheered at his display of logic and continued about its business. To continue, continued the minister impatiently, once a week, by royal proclamation, the world market is held here in the great square, and people come from everywhere, to buy words they need, or trade in the words they haven't used, or trade in the words they haven't used. Our job, said the Count, is to see that all the words sold are proper ones, for it wouldn't do to sell someone a word that had no meaning at all, or didn't exist at all. For it wouldn't do to sell someone a word that had no meaning or didn't exist at all. For instance, if you bought a word like, let's look at this word, GHLBTSK. Who could say that? Where would you use it? It would be very difficult, thought Milo, but there were so many words that were difficult, and he hardly knew any of them. But we never choose which ones to use, explained the Earl as they walked toward the marketplace stall, for as long as they mean what they mean to mean, we don't care if they make sense or nonsense. Innocence or magnificence, said the Count. Reticence or common sense, said the Undersecretary. That seems simple enough, said Milo, trying to be polite. Easy as falling off a log, cried the Earl, falling off a log with a loud thump. Must you be so clumsy? Shouted the Duke. All I said was, began the Earl, rubbing his head. So he said, easy as falling off a log, and he fell off a log. All I said was, began the Earl, rubbing his head. We heard you, said the minister angrily, and you'll have to find an expression that's less dangerous. The Earl dusted himself off as the others snickered audibly. That means laughed, right? You see, cautioned the Count, you must pick your words very carefully, and be sure to say just what you intend to say. And now, we must leave to make preparations for the royal banquet. You'll be there, of course, said the minister. But before Milo had a chance to say anything, they were rushing off across the square as fast as they had come. Enjoy yourself at the market, shouted back the Undersecretary. Market, recited the Duke, an open space or covered building in which... And that was the last Milo heard as they disappeared into the crowd. I never knew words could be so confusing, Milo said to Talk as he bent down to scratch the dog's ear. Only when you use a lot to say a little, answered Talk. Let's pause and think about that. Milo says, I never knew words could be so confusing. And then Talk responds, only when you use a lot to say a little, answered Talk. Milo thought this was quite the wisest thing he'd heard all day. Come, he shouted. Let's see the market. It looks very... Oh, no, that's Milo. Come, he said. Let's see the market. It looks very exciting. All right. So, Milo thinks what Taka said, only when you use a lot to say a little, as being very wise, to be very smart. You know, I want you to think about what you think that means. Why does Talk say words are confusing when you use a lot to say a little? What does he mean by that? All right, that's what I want you to tell me in the comments. What does Talk mean when he says that words are confusing only when you use a lot to say a little? All right? And that's where we're going to stop for today. Next week we will start with Chapter 4, Confusion in the Marketplace. All right. Thank you for joining me for Read Aloud, cuz.